Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
Hi, I'm Kelly Brandenburg. I've been a stylist for the last 15 years. I'm a color specialist, as well as I provide a wide variety of other services. You can find me at 19 Blue Salon in the heart of downtown. I'm happy to be a sponsor of Get Conscious Now.
Hello. Happy New Year. I'm Patricia DiOrio, and I'm delighted to be welcoming you to the very first show of Get Conscious Now for 2015. This show is dedicated to raising consciousness. And by this I mean becoming awake and aware that we are all interconnected in the web of life, that there is no separation. We are one. We are one with each other, we are one with all life on the planet, and we are one with Gaia herself. This episode is about conscious real estate, and it underscores our dedication so beautifully because we're going to be talking about Mother Earth and the precious gift she has for all of us in every way. Our guest, you might say, is a champion in the cause of protecting Mother Earth, and he has a wonderful and extraordinary story to share with you. But first, I of course have to introduce my partner in Get Conscious Now and my co-host, Mr. Stu Zimmerman, who always has a very charming few words to tell you in way of welcome. Stu?
Patricia, thank you so much as always inviting me to partner with you in this.
You're welcome.
And thank you everybody for joining us, because Get Conscious Now, as Patricia said, it's about all of us being interconnected. And it's about this very moment, right here, right now, as the title says, Get Conscious Now. And we have had a whole library of fabulous shows that extend, 16, 18, we've had plenty of them. We actually have our own YouTube channel. So come to youtube.com/getconsciousnow to catch up on any of the programs you may have missed, just in case you haven't caught them all. And we've had great guests like Deepak Chopra, Reverend Michael Beckwith, people who've talked about economics, education, healthcare, all the things in everyday life where we could use a little more forward thinking, including today's guest, who's going to be fabulous, that Patricia will introduce in a moment. And we have a fabulous show for you, even beyond our guest, which, if that's possible, which will also include Patricia's own quantum quotes and, dare I say, my own version of Stu's views. So you want to stay tuned for the whole program. So thank you so much for joining us. And Patricia, please introduce our guest.
I will. Our guest tonight is Adam C. Hall, whose passion for the environment has been called bold and fearless. He is the author of The Earthkeeper, Undeveloping the Future. And he is also the founder and managing partner of the Earthkeeper Alliance, a for-profit company that invests in vast pieces of land while making a profit, keeping the land in its pristine condition for us. And he has a wonderful story to share with you. He's sitting right here, but before you meet him, I want to show you a wonderful little clip that beautifully expresses the essence of his work. So, if we can have the clip.
We invite you on a journey to fulfill your legacy and be a part of something greater than yourself, to enjoy the land and all its gifts, to preserve nature and all its precious life forms, and to do all this while still earning a significant profit. Welcome to the Earthkeeper Alliance. Let me introduce you to the lead visionary of this wonderful campaign.
Hi, I'm Adam Hall, founding steward of the Earthkeeper Alliance. After 22 years in the real estate land development business, I woke up and realized that the old paradigm of maximizing land development rights was not sustainable. Soon after, I asked myself, when do you stop being a CEO and start being a grandfather? Why not right now?
With a group of dedicated leaders, we came up with a wonderful way to give back. We call it Undevelopment. Undevelopment is taking large tracts of land that are slated for development and restoring them back to their natural state, permanently preserving the ecosystem. In the process, we reduce the development rights, stopping carbon emissions and the degradation of the land. We then carefully design a sustainable development that integrates harmoniously with the environment. Our investors are able to use state and/or federal tax deductions. We then sell the revision development for profit. Here we recently conserved 90% of the Red Tail Ranch located in Big Sur, California. It will forever remain wild. And the impact goes beyond conservation and profits. The Earthkeeper Alliance donates 10% of their profit to nonprofit partners.
Feel free to give me a call and let's discuss how we can build a legacy together. This is our campaign for humanity. Join us. It starts right now.
Wow, that was lovely. Adam C. Hall, we're so delighted to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. It's my pleasure to be here, Patricia.
Thanks for joining us.
And Stu, I've been very excited about coming over and sharing with you. There's so many things that are happening on our amazing planet right now, and it's going to be fun to talk a little bit about that and see how we can all collaborate and enjoy this beauty that we have here.
I really enjoyed your book. I mean, it was, in fact, the book came to me way before I called you. And what struck me about the book was your transparency and your authenticity. I mean, you really, it was like reading somebody's private diary or journal, you know. I almost felt a little bit like a voyeur. But it was really a wonderful expression of the shift that you went through from being this mega real estate developer to being such a passionate preservationist. Would you give us like the broad brushstroke of your story, which brought you from your work as a traditional commercial real estate person to this millennial real estate undeveloper?
Well, I would be happy to, and I was just reflecting on the way over to the studio a little bit about the amazing journey that I've been on, and how blessed I've been, and to be with all the relationships that I am in at the moment and have been over the years. And one of the things that reminded me a little bit about a point in time in my own personal journey was December 2002. And I was really riding the peak of what I would say was my career and the success of my business and the company that I was running. And I was living the quintessential American dream, and married my junior high and high school sweetheart, and we have 3 amazing and gorgeous daughters together. And believe it or not, I'm a grandfather 3 times over. I have 3 granddaughters now as well. Wow. But ultimately, built that big house and the country club and all that. And one evening I went to a holiday party, a very fancy party in Beverly Hills, and there was a palm reader there. And I really had not found myself too fond of, these types of things I referred to them as, or new agey stuff, this woo-woo stuff. But my wife at the time nudged me over there and said, "Go over there, get over there and see what she says." And she said one word to me. She said, "Separation." And I shared the story deeply and intimately in the book, but when I heard that word, separation, it stuck on me. and I couldn't sleep at night. I began to take long walks on the beach and in nature, and it began a quest to really understand what that meant. And then ultimately what I realized is that something dearly was missing in my life. It was vital, and that I knew that I couldn't go forward until such time as I went on the quest to find out. And so that's where it began, and it's certainly not where it ended. But it's a little bit about where what transpired at a very ostensibly a high point in my life.
How much time was it from the time you went to that party until you started to really awaken spiritually, would you say?
Well, it was instantaneous in terms of a shock. Right. It was like a lightning bolt had come from somewhere. I didn't know what it meant, and I certainly didn't have any directionality to take. But immediately I began to read Eastern, Western modalities. I began to really search and to really look deeply within and begin to ask the questions. And then ultimately, my life began to unravel. And it sent me into what many would describe as the dark night of the soul. Right. And I went to that place and all the things that came along with it, but ultimately to begin to ask those important questions that hopefully all of us ask at some point in time. But ultimately, it's, who am I? What is my purpose? And I think we also would include many other things. What is my gift? How do I can share with the community? How can I show up for my children and my grandchildren in a new and more important way? And so I begin to ask those questions and begin to find answers, and also to begin the process of meeting amazing people out on the path. And hence I've been feeling the highs and the lows of it all, but ultimately to return to serve and to be a being that takes responsibility in his life to honor the planet and to honor the journey that humanity is on, and also to tend to it as what the indigenous would say is an earth keeper, one who tends to the vitality and wholeness and well-being of all things.
Stewardship.
Stewardship.
Yeah.
We're going to get into what it is to be an earth keeper and explore the mission and everything else, but you mentioned something about the dark night of the soul as part of an essential element of your evolution and awakening. And many of us, I've had what I would consider a dark night of the soul as well. But the question I have is, do you feel like a dark night is required of people in order for them to, awaken and evolve into a higher state of consciousness and a deeper state of connection?
I do, as a matter of fact.
I agree.
I think that unless you are willing to, what the avatars and mystics of long have said, to travel through what they call the valley of the shadow of death, to enter into that space that is really unknown within my own personal psyche, to discover what is there. But ultimately, the great discovery is that in the process of entering into those places that ostensibly are dark, it is my own light that illumines the darkness to ultimately reveal that there's really nothing there at all but the beauty of who we are as human beings. So that fear that needs to be faced is a big thing, and it's certainly something to not be overlooked at. For me, I was terrified at times, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. And I asked God for guidance, and I asked others to show me the way, both those that are present on the planet, but there's also other guides that I found that are not seen, that are also very present, that held me. And I share those in the book quite intimately. But yes, Stu and Patricia, I do believe that that is an inevitable part of any awakening experience. And to go there with honor and grace and know that you are loved and held.
You pushed the envelope a lot on that path, in that dark soul. I mean, the journeys that you took when you were in the blizzard and the accident you had. And I mean, I encourage people to read Adam's book. It's really excellent, The Earth Keeper, Undeveloping the Future. It's a wonderful story. It's very real. It's very authentic, you know. And yet you really kind of went in for the dark night. I mean, you didn't play it safe, so to speak.
And I certainly don't advocate that for anyone, to be quite frank with you. But what I do advocate is to remember that it is our own unique journeys. Right. and that what I chose to do intuitively was to follow that inner guidance and in that wisdom. And in some cases, I certainly pushed the envelope. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly a little wiser from it. But ultimately, I believe that the awakening process can occur over lifetimes, or it can occur right now. And what I found that I was interested in a quantum leaping of what I knew and where I was, to really leap into what I was becoming, to really engage in the destiny of being that we all have. And one of the things that I found essential about that, Patricia and Stu, was that it's a little bit like muscle confusion. And it's kind of like, it's confusing, it's kind of like a conscious confusion almost, because in order for me to jar loose the old structures and the sheathing that I had put around myself for protection, for the safety of my heart and the safety of my lifetimes, it's so strong that the only way to do it is to confuse it, and that means stepping out on the quest, as some would say, into the elements of the complete unknown. Mm-hmm. In the book, I share a story about walking in the middle of the night into the mountains in Utah. And
not highly recommended for everybody.
I mean, it really isn't. I'll never forget. I got back to the room, and then I picked up the park paper, and there was a snapshot of the mountain lion that they had taken a couple weeks earlier, right up on the same place I went walking. But I revealed to me this greater sense of presence that I had, even as I felt the sweating of my palms as I was walking up the mountainside. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, the point here, and not to belabor it too much, is to get out of your own element and your own comfort zone, to recognize the beauty and the magnificent and the capacity that each of us have as human beings, and to move beyond a perceptual, 5-sense perceptual reality, and to really exercise another muscle, that of intuition and that of greater consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the reason why I ask the question is because some people will use that fear of the unknown and dark night of the soul doesn't look so good, you know. I mean, the smiles on the back end and that feeling of connection and knowing the light, and knowing the oneness, I mean, that's priceless. And that's something that people aspire to. But if you got to go through hell to get to heaven kind of thing, it's like a lot of people say, you know what, let me just kind of stay in my comfort zone and not make that venture.
I'm not sure that we have a choice. I think when the dark night of the soul is ready, I mean, we're in it. We can't deny it. I think we can only put it off so long. I think it's inevitable, you know, for all of us, because we're all about awakening.
Well, our collective reality, what it offers is consumerism, addiction,
materialism,
becoming just a doer that, constantly is obsessed with having to do some type of thing or something every moment of their waking hours. So it's truly a place of avoidance, but I concur. It ultimately is something that you can embrace on your terms, not on the terms of an illness or a breakdown or a tragedy. And I preferred to embrace it on my terms, with a lot of help, of course.
A friend of mine once said, it's not what happens in life, it's how you deal with it that indicates the amount of suffering that you have. So I think by embracing the dark night is really important.
And one of the things I would really like to invite in is the notion that, one, we are not alone. And it's part of the dark night is the perception that we are. And that's really the element of the darkness. And two, to that extent, because we are all interconnected on a profound level, no matter what our state of consciousness or awareness really is, I also wonder if it's possible that some of the people who are doing the dark night of the soul are no different than, let's say, explorers who are going out into the unknown, and they're the ones who get the thorns and the weeds, and they're the ones who get cut up a little bit, but they're also blazing a trail. So that for the others, it's a lot easier to go through a path because some of it's already been carved.
Very much so.
Yeah,
I concur
agree with
you.
that too.
And I think, and it's interesting because in those places are the gems. Right. In those places, I discovered the greatest treasures that I could ever imagined. And so ultimately, I think the Course of Miracles really speaks to this beautifully. And I'll say a little bit slowly because, it's not the unknown so much that we fear. It's the idea that it's unknown. Because we don't think about it. We don't know what's unknown. It's just the idea that it's unknown. So we fear the idea of even going there, and many don't even, oh my gosh, I won't go there. But ultimately, the gift comes when we find the fearlessness within to go to that place and ultimately either to demystify something that has never been there. But what I found was to uncover the treasures of my being and the beauty of humanity, and in particular the Mother Earth that has helped me so deeply and has loved me so much along the way, and speaks to me all the time. And so those wonders come forth from those places where I exhibited the sense that I needed to be fearless. Sometimes I was a little stupid. But
I wasn't going to say that.
But again, I don't advocate all the activities that I share on the journey.
Yeah, I was pretty amazed at some of the stuff you did.
Yeah, well, let's get into being an earth keeper. And by the way, I love the fact that your name is Adam, because in Hebrew, Adam means earth.
Yes.
So you were named that way. I guess they knew. Your parents knew.
Well, my late beloved father gave me that name, and I've fully recognized he did so for a reason.
I enjoyed reading about your parents.
Yeah. So what is it to be an earth keeper, and what's the mission of the Earth Keeper Alliance?
Well, first and foremost, for those of you that don't know, an earth keeper is an indigenous term. It's been pervasive over the millennia through all indigenous cultures, and one that is the earth keeper within the community. And there's other keepers within the community, the wisdom keeper, the day keeper, and other keepers of whatever may be relevant within the community. But earth keeper is one that has been given the duty to tend to the well-being and vitality of all things on earth. And that could be from a grain of sand to the bringing and the raising of the children and the great-grandchildren. And the indigenous have spoke beautifully about 7 generations, and all those elders that lived for many, many decades beyond what they were supposed to. These are the great earth keepers of old. So my calling that coming to call my business and my vocation and the dedication of my life around earth keeping, I feel is a responsibility of mine, and it's a duty that I intend to uphold, to tend to the well-being of the planet and humanity. And what I recognized, Stu and Patricia, was that I was not in relations with Earth. I wasn't in relationship with myself, but I wasn't in much less anybody else, but I wasn't in relationship with Earth. And I believe this is the calling of our time, that we engage in return to a relationship with the Earth. Now that doesn't mean you need to be intimate with it. It doesn't mean you need to be a tree hugger. It doesn't mean any of that, but it means what it means to us, and it's truly the mission of an earth keeper. And I believe we're all earth keepers because we're on the planet at this time. But what it means in terms of the mission of the Earth Keeper Alliance is that ultimately to come to a relationship of which we honor the conservation, the preservation, and restoration of the land. And when we align with those three things, we align with the conservation, the preservation, and the restoration of our being and our humanity. And so my sense is this is a great calling. And I believe the miracles and the great answers will come as more and more of us gather within the communities, but also we gather within ourselves and gather within our hearts to become one with this great planet of ours. And I often say, the earth and I are one, so serve all. Yeah. She serves us. Let's serve her and do that. And hence, that became the mission of the Earth Keeper Alliance.
So with such an altruistic mission, why a for-profit company?
Well, I think that is a big question for this time. And I think both the not-for-profit community is seeking greater answers. I think also the for-profit community is in many ways in demise and in collapse. It hasn't served the planet, as I think it could on a go-forward basis. Not to say it's right or wrong, it's just to say there's a lot of shift going on around those modalities of not-for-profit and for-profit. And so the idea of creating a hybrid is really about saying that we can bring integrate in union these ostensibly would have been seen as two different worlds. Mm-hmm. And that when we combine those two things synergistically, we can accomplish far more than ever could be imagined. So that is what we are out doing. We're out putting new models into place. We're part of that conversation around hybrid companies like B Corps. We are supporting things like 1% for the planet and other things in the community that really say, hey, we can really have a new bottom line, and that bottom line is about people, planet, profits with purpose. And we can exercise those things, and they're not mutually exclusive. They can all be on the table. And I think that is really the imperative for the business community and all of us, is to ask ourselves, what is that bottom line? And how can we not only think and create and build this new earth that is now, we are the builders of this new earth. Mm-hmm. And these new communities, but to put them together with allowing what was old to fall away that didn't work, to bringing forth what we can bring forth that works. And so we have chosen those can be integrated, and that's what we're up to.
So what percentage of the land parcels that you invest in, that you and your investors invest in, what percentage of it is reserved for profit? Do you have a working percentage, or is it vary depending on the land?
Well, it varies depending upon the land. You know, anytime when I go out to walk on land, I sit with it, and I walk to the four corners, and I sit within the beauty of it and in the light of it throughout a course of a day or more. And ultimately, it will be called to what speaks there. And just so you know, it often says that nothing belongs here. And it's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And nothing should be done. And ultimately, we honor that. Yet we know that the way the old structure works, that over the course of time, development comes into the communities and areas, and land rights, private land rights, are sacred in this country, and they're sanctosanct, and they're almost not touchable in many respects, and because of that, it's created great harm and tremendous degradation to the planet. So, to answer your question, it's really relevant, but to what the land calls for first, because it is an earth-centric business model, and I'll make no bones about that. But ultimately, is for our investors, and what we do, we look to create the right balance, and that could be up to 95% of land being conserved. But also the metric is what are you doing with the remainder? What are you piling on the remainder? And so the remainder becomes essential to minimize that human impact on the land. So it's a delicate balance. The more the better, ultimately, and what we're finding is it's actually accretive to value, the conservation and preservation. It actually adds to the value of the land and what is there. So it's an exciting process in its own right.
You know, I was really curious to see that in addition to some of the traditional, let's say, triple bottom line, that socially responsible investing with the people, planet, profits, that you added a fourth of peace. Why don't you address how you incorporate peace into your bottom line?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because it's a purpose of peace, and what I think all of us, well, at least I know from the real estate community, is the acrimony amongst our people over the land and land rights. And I deeply honor the indigenous rights, who have a lot to say about a lot of various sacred lands. And yet we have a lot of acrimony even amongst those of us that are calling for conservation. So I put forth that we put an end to the acrimony, and that we bring peace to our solution. We bring peace to our vision. We bring that together so that when we are sitting at the table together, we begin with that in lieu of litigation. Many of my brethren, so to speak, in the environmental space, they don't never heard of this word peace practically, and they can be extremely litigious, and some can be violent about what they do, and so I'm not saying right or wrong, but what I am putting forth is that enough is enough, and this is not how we build together the blueprint for the new humanity and the new earth. So if we can come together with peace in that purpose, then that's, I can say, our mission as Earth Keepers and at the Earth Keeper Alliance.
So you're also president and chairman of the board of an organization called the Urban Garden Community, correct? Yes. Could you share with us about that and how it relates to the Earth Keeper Alliance?
I'd be happy to, and my wife Lizanne and I and a few other good brothers and sisters have begun this process of supporting urban gardens and the process of putting forth an educational programs primarily within the inner city. And we're just getting started, and we're looking for a lot of support in this area. But it grew out of a vision that I had where I was sitting in a urban park, and I saw a young boy run out of the garden with a big tomato that I think was about bigger than his hands practically. And he ran up and said, "Look, Mom, look what I can bring home to dinner." And of course, there's nothing novel about urban gardens. And there's thankfully so much is happening around the globe around this. But what is also happening is that there is what has become known as NDD, nature deficit disorder. And it's stunning. There was been some statistics that have come out recently. There was a study in the UK where nearly 70% of grade school children had almost no relationship with the environment, the trees or the flowers, and many maybe have never even seen a cow. And of course that also speaks to their parents and us as adults. And so the advocacy here, certainly of my own personal purpose, is to bring forth, again, what we mentioned earlier, the connectivity into being the relationship with the earth, Mother Earth, and how she sustains us. So if we can bring that education into urban gardens and other places, and they can allow that to share that with their generation, we may have lost a few generations, but that doesn't mean we give up on the generations that are forthcoming to serve this planet.
Now, you mentioned that nature deficit disorder. I actually experienced that going to Manhattan, where after a few days of being on cement, I actually could feel the difference when I was in either Central or Bryant Park, actually walking on grass versus being on cement with subway underneath or sewer underneath and feeling like a hollowness where there were layers between me and the earth that I just felt like I started to lose my center a bit. Let alone all the other craziness that's going on there with taxi cab, noise pollution, and all the rest.
You're a sensitive man, Stu.
Well, every now and then. I've also been accused of being insensitive many times, so
I know that too.
I'm humble. I'm humble to that. We just talked about the city for a second. It sounded like in some of your development you look towards something called eco-luxury. Which almost sounds like a place where you park your Tesla or something, but maybe you could tell us a little more about that, because eco-luxury sounds like something that would be highly attractive to us awakened folks, possibly with a few dollars in our pocket.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because one of the things that I think is purposeful is how we integrate our old stories and old business lines into new stories and new ways to express ourselves. And just because we have certain things in our lives that we enjoy doesn't mean as we awaken or we become more conscious that we necessarily need to throw it all out the window. Now, I'm not advocating consumerism, and I'm not advocating anything of the sort, but what I'm saying is that it's the importance is how we can bring marry the two things together. And so when we speak about eco-development, and not as a patina or a facade, but for example, my work that I'm doing with some major developers who have reached out to me, primarily in the Western United States, that are asking for answers around their development projects. And these are things that are bringing thousands of homes over 10, 20, 30 years, and asking how do we incorporate this sense of luxury or enjoyment within our community. How do we incorporate that within the earth? And how does that look in terms of what we are presenting to ultimately the consumer that will buy a home in our neighborhood? So we are having this discussion. We're actually engaging on a large scale now with developers that are doing just that. But I hear you, and I think there has to be a sensitivity to it, because some of these eco-luxury developers seem to be driven by luxury first and earth second.
And the luxury is their own.
Seems I keep forgetting
And
that.
the first piece of the bottom line is profit. Yeah. Well, gosh, our time is flying. I want to hear about some of the projects that you have happening. Could you share a bit of that with us? I know you have one up in Big Sur, correct?
Well, we have a project in Big Sur, and that one has become full circle, and we were successful at conserving the vast majority of that.
How many acres?
It was 400 acres, so it wasn't large by scope, but in terms of Big Sur it was. Well, the key there was it had 1.5 miles of ocean frontage. And you know, that was the essential. It was to really conserve the pristine and vastness, the wildness of that ocean frontage, of which we actually, the pictures of the flowers in the short piece was that ocean frontage, which is now now in conservation. So we are completed that. I actually share it in the book of how that journey became so much a part of, you know, not only what I'm doing, but who I really am. So something we haven't spoken very much about as of yet is a new project that we are doing up in the Santa Cruz mountain range. And so we're working on a 300-acre beautiful redwood forested property to bring conservation there and limited type of development, but ultimately to create a camp of which we can all come to and the community can come to share to discuss how we build this new blueprint for this new humanity and this new unfolding. So we're going to have some fun with that.
Oh, beautiful. It's a beautiful location. Oh, that area is just, I've camped up there before. It's beautiful. You know, you were also made a recent visit to that Bay Area with the SAND conference, the Science and Non-Duality, which my guess is you didn't talk specifically about real estate directly, but more about consciousness.
Well, I didn't talk about real estate at all. I really spoke about, you know, how is it that we integrate what we do with what we're being. And I sense this is a big conversation happening not only in the collective, but perhaps in the conscious community. The awakening community is really wondering how the challenges of that fully integration of being and doing. So I spoke quite a bit about how we can do that, and you know, Eckhart refers to it as awakened doing. But ultimately, it's about shifting how and where we come to the world. And as we coming like I did as a conquistador, as a predatory businessman, or do we come from at a place of consciousness, as conscious capitalists, as conscious beings that are serving the greater good? So the integration of those two can be pretty tricky, but ultimately what I'm finding is that to keep showing up. And the more I do, the more fun it gets.
It's such an important conversation because we can have an intellectual, logical, linear, practical understanding of spirituality based in science, and we can give it a good rap. But when it comes right down to practicing it every day in our lives and actually being those principles, and so we be and we do in balance, I think that's what's really critical. And I think that's the piece, in my opinion, based on what I've learned myself in my work, that people need, is really bring these concepts into action. So I'm fascinated with the term that I came across in my research on you, philanthropic capitalism. I've used the term conscious capitalism, which is certainly what you're up to, but speak about philanthropic capitalism. How does it differ from conscious capitalism?
Philanthropic capitalism is the thing in the philanthropic world right now. So the old style of not-for-profit, kind of operating in your own a silo in your own world, and just doling out the donations that you have, that model is giving room to a new model. And the new model speaks of that the capital that is coming into philanthropic endeavors is capital that can be invested in endeavors that create impact. And meaning, like, if you are, say you want to loan capital to communities that are severely depressed and blighted communities, and you want to support small business and artists within those communities, you can do so in a way that's just not giving it to them, but helps everybody to remain accountable. Silicon Valley, they are the leaders in this space. They have given billions of dollars in 2014 alone under these type of structures. So it's about doing something that holds everybody accountable, but you can make a little money too, so the money that you give goes a lot further for more to share.
Beautiful. Well, let's have our audience be accountable for a moment. What can they do to get involved with some of your activities, or just in general in terms of being an earth keeper in their own way?
Well, first and foremost, I would highly encourage everyone to feel free to drop me a note or an email, or that's the best way to get in touch with me, because I am readily available. It's part of the joy of being out, is to be sharing and to be hearing from all the great earth keepers that are on our planet. It's probably the #1 thing that I've had over the last couple of years that have bring me so much happiness. But ultimately, there's very specific things, and I think whether they're related to just working with us, because we're always looking for people, certainly in this community. We have a very precious coastline, this Gaviota coast. I shared a conversation with a major influencer yesterday, as a matter of fact. The next 3 years to 4 years or 5 years is likely to determine the outcome of this Gaviota coast over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years and beyond. So there's great conversation to connect with there, be part of that process, because that process is really coming together. And other than that, I think it's best just to give me a ring, and we'll be happy to share ideas and thoughts on how we can collaborate together.
Great. So we're wrapping up this interview, and I always like to ask our guests, what could you leave our audience with? Just a brief pearl of wisdom that encapsulates the essence of this show, of your work, really. Yeah. What would you have to say to them? And there's your camera right over there.
Well, Mother Earth isn't calling us, and she's asking us to be in relationship with her and to come to know the abundance and the beauty that exist within our own being. And I put forth that each of us has that responsibility and duty to do that, but ultimately to come to the joy of our community and our families together as one, and to collaborate so that we can co-create a new world and co-create an environment that's safe and healthy for our children and their children for many, many millennia.
Great. Thank you so much. It was so wonderful.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here, and it just was wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
And now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show, and I have a feeling that it's one of your favorite too, and that is Stu's Views. Stu, take it away.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay, here we are for this edition of Stu's Views, and this program has been talking about being an earth keeper. Well, I'd like to invite in us being a mirth keeper. Yes, indeed. We get to lighten up a little bit here, because we talked about the dark night of the soul. Let's talk about a light era of the soul, because it's also possible. Okay, because ultimately, let's see what reality really is here. Okay, yes, the Earth is our home. Yes, it's the only planet we live on, so we might as well love it and treat it well. And the better we treat it, the better we can be treating ourselves. That's from one perspective. From another perspective, we are on this ball of Earth that's rotating and spinning around at 66,000 miles an hour, hurtling through space with a whole solar system that's hurtling through in the middle of who knows where, leading who knows where. We really don't know. What we do know is we hate traffic. We don't like to be overweight. We have problems with our kids or our loved ones, and life seems to be hard, and we live life based on scarcity, and our problems are so huge. As we're spinning through space, hurtling through who knows where on this huge rock. Science would have us tell us, at this moment, that as much as we think we are individual, as much as we think that we are our thoughts, we aren't. that in fact, we are vibrational beings. We are an aspect of consciousness that truly is inseparable from all that is. So I'm really inviting you right now just to sit with that for a moment and take a deep breath, okay, in some hopefully very fresh air, because this is a brand new moment that we can all agree on. So take a breath, take a deep one right now, and just let it go. And just consider what a blessing it is to be incarnate. That for all this craziness, for all of our lives' doings and all the stuff that seems to be so hard, and all the stuff that could ultimately lead to some form of dark night, there's also a greater truth beyond that. That we are just these energetic beings. These physical bodies are just a vehicle we happen to be riding around in for a limited time only. But yet the truth is we are so much more. And as we tap into that, as we tap into the very real possibility that whatever we call the creator of all things, God, Spirit, Source, the universe, whatever we call this thing, it truly is ever present. It truly is all things, which means it truly is us, no matter who we or what we could possibly define ourselves as otherwise. It doesn't change that ultimate reality. And when we look at it from that perspective, we get to have a little more fun. And we get to even laugh at ourselves a little bit, because some of the things we think can be a little silly, no matter how serious they may otherwise be, and no matter how much they put us in a box. So be a mirth keeper. And with that, it's time for Patricia Diorio, her wisdom and her quantum quote.
Thank you, Stu. And I have to say, I never know what Stu's going to come up with. We talk about it a little bit. He kind of gives me just an idea of what he's going to say, but I always enjoy it. Always enjoy it.
So glad, Patricia.
Yeah. So, quantum quotes. Well, it happened again this time. As I was researching for an environmental quote online, I just, right away, boom, this quote came up, and I got this rush up my spine. I always listen to my body. When I ask, so give me the perfect quote for this show. And it came up first thing. This quote is from Gandhi, and you'll find when you read Adam's book that Gandhi's quotes are peppered throughout the Earth Keeper. And Gandhi was an amazing, passionate preservationist. And if you look at any of the Gandhi quotes, you'll see that he was very much into the environment and preservation. And here's the quote, so listen to this. What we are doing to the forests of the world is but a reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another. What we are doing to the forests of the world is but a reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to each other. And that quote speaks right into this conversation that we are all connected, that there is no separation. And what I shared in the beginning of the show, we are one. We are one with each other, we are one with all life on planet Earth, and we are one with precious Gaia herself. So whatever we do to the terrain outside of us, can't help but do it to the inside terrain, which I call the body-psyche complex. And this, of course, goes right back to energy and Einstein. So think about it. If everything is energy, and we're all interconnected in the web of life, and there is no separation, then it just becomes a logical, common sense conversation for us to take care of this earth and to take care of ourselves and to really own our true nature as spiritual beings having a human experience. This is how we do it. We wake up to the truth of who we are and our power to create this world. So in my opinion, I believe that this is a recreational realm. I think that we're here to enjoy ourselves. I think that we're here to enjoy the magnificence and beauty of Mother Earth and all her abundant gifts that we have a chance to share. We're here to love each other. We're here to live in peace, prosperity, and happiness. And we can do that by creating and co-creating, personally and collectively, heaven on earth. We can't do this if we remain ignorant and asleep of our true identity. And despite what the media tells us when we turn the TV on, if you watch the media, all the bad news that's there, the good news is that humanity is awakening. We are awakening to the truth of who we are. And my question to you is, what can you do to make your contribution to facilitate this awakening? Ask yourself, what can I do to make my contribution to the awakening of the planet? So thank you very much for watching tonight, for sharing your time with us. And I want to thank our audience, our wonderful audience, for being here. So wonderful to have your energy. Thank you very much. And of course, Adam, thank you really for being here. And Stu.
Yes, dear.
Are we ready?
Anytime now.
Okay.
All right.
So until next time.
Until next time.
Which camera were we looking at? There we go.
Right
okay.
there.
Until next time, remember, get conscious now.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcata Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
Hi, I'm Kelly Brandenburg. I've been a stylist for the last 15 years. I'm a color specialist, as well as I provide a wide variety of other services. You can find me at 19 Blue Salon in the heart of downtown. I'm happy to be a sponsor of Get Conscious Now.